Oh. What did you do with something? Earlier you clicked something.
It was, what I clicked was in Skype.
No, it doesn't work anymore.
You're going to have to do whatever you did to get it working in the first place. To those who are watching, is there audio?
Can you hear us? We're having another fun technical difficulty.
Please bear with us as we try to fix the video feed.
Yes, they hear us, but they can't see us. This is fun. Should we do just an audio? So I don't know how to.
It might be something in the YouTube settings, because what I did before was I changed the settings in Skype, not the settings in YouTube.
Yeah, so I had
And
already. I
on your
know how
phone.
to do that. I did that already, but no, it's nothing to do with that.
We might just have to do an audio-only broadcast today.
Maybe. Are you okay doing just an audio? Otherwise, we'll have to wait a few minutes for us to figure out how to fix this thing, which neither Bhante nor I know how to. So that will be fun. Well, we'll practice renunciation. Renunciation of video. Well, I don't know how to switch it to the other, so with this interface, so there's not much that I can do.
It should be in the YouTube settings themselves.
Yes, but I don't know how to get out of them. Oh, unless maybe 1 second. Give me 1 second, and I see if I can fix the video thing. We are currently trying to fix the problem.
Bear with us, practice patience. It should be in the video source settings.
So the source is always the same, and that is connected to that. It just doesn't work. I don't know why. So, maybe Bhante, if you want to say something in the meanwhile while I try to fix this.
And so maybe in the meantime, we can go ahead and start doing some meditation practice. So go ahead and get in an upright position. Bringing your body to stillness and allowing it to relax. So keeping the body both upright and relaxed. And take a few long, slow, deep breaths. With each breath, bringing body and mind deeper into stillness, relaxation, and peacefulness. As you do so, you can start gently bringing to mind the simple phrase, may everyone be happy. May everyone be happy. Just keep gently repeating this phrase in your mind. May everyone be happy. So, with a soft smile, relaxed, gentle eyes, just keep repeating this phrase. May everyone be happy. And as you repeat this phrase, really try to mean it. Make a sincere effort to focus on this intention, this wish, this genuine aspiration for all beings to be happy. This genuine wish for happiness to be experienced by yourself as well as all others. May everyone be happy. And notice the feeling of loving kindness, that bright, gentle, joyful feeling that slowly begins to illuminate body and mind. And try to intensify the feeling of loving kindness, the feeling of goodwill as you continue to recite, may everyone be happy. May everyone be happy. May everyone be happy. Flooding the whole body and mind with this bright, joyful, soothing bliss of loving kindness. May everyone be happy. May everyone be happy. So letting any sense of separation fall away, any sense of distinction between self and other. Just let that fall away and focus on this limitless, universal, all pervading mind of loving kindness. May everyone be happy. May everyone be happy. May everyone be happy. If you find that you're getting distracted, even with the repetition of the phrase, may everyone be happy, then you can bring in a second statement in the mind. So one track in the mind is repeating, may everyone be happy, may everyone be happy, may everyone be happy. And at the same time, the second track in the mind is repeating metta, metta, metta. So keeping these two going simultaneously so that the mind is more occupied, more fully engaged with the meditation. But if you don't need it, then just stick with one track. May everyone be happy. And keep magnifying the feeling of loving kindness, feeling of metta. Remember to smile. Keep magnifying that gentle, loving feeling, that universal benevolence. May everyone be happy. May everyone be happy. May everyone be happy. Remember to keep the body relaxed so there's a sense of ease and serenity in the body as we continue to saturate the mind with loving kindness, wishing, may everyone be happy, may everyone be happy, may everyone be happy. For the last couple minutes, let go of the repetition and just focus on the feeling of loving kindness itself. So, intensely focusing all your attention, all your mind on making the feeling of benevolence, the feeling of metta, as strong and powerful as you can.
you, Bhante. And thank you all for meditating with us. So the first frustrating news of the night is that the video camera doesn't work. um, so hello, Matthew, Kevin, Cam, Jens, Reed, Julia, Guaxining, Yudi, Andrew. Yay, good to see you. Melvin, Vichitra. The little spinning circle on my otherwise blank YouTube screen seems to symbolize the frustrating news that I'm still stuck in samsara. Hello, Claudia. Yes.
Yep, still stuck on the wheel, going in circles. Yeah, and that's true. But also, you notice it as 4 parts. So, like the 4 noble truths, the 4 aspects of awakening, the 4 parts of the 4 bases of success. Also, there's 4 spokes with 4 white pieces for a total of 8 for the Noble Eightfold Path. So actually not too bad. You can just see this as a Buddhist symbol. A little bright bit of light in the middle of darkness, just like the Dhamma in these dark times. So there's lots of symbolism to be found here. So no problem. And yes, I agree, Reed. This is making lemonade from the lemons. Yeah, so here we are again, practicing together. And so I find it really beautiful that you actually stayed with us despite the lack of video. I was expecting 90% of people to sign off and find one of the many other live Dhamma programs happening these days. And there's countless. It's really beautiful that there's so many different monasteries and Buddhist organizations that are providing live Dharma programs in these difficult times. So by all means, I encourage you to, not right now, but maybe after the evening program, I encourage you to explore all the different options that you have these days. So many Buddhist temples and monasteries are giving you ways of connecting with the resident monastics. So you can see what's out there and enjoy this opportunity to spend your days practicing Dhamma, listening to Dhamma, discussing the Dhamma, contemplating the Dhamma. So I was supposed to talk about frustrating news, but actually one bit of really good news is that now there's so many options for live Dharma programs online. Just a few weeks ago, there actually weren't very many live Dharma programs to be found. Now there's lots and lots of them everywhere. That's good news. But that's not the topic of the evening. So the topic of the evening is dealing with frustrating news. And we've had lots and lots of frustrating news over the past 2.5 months, almost 3 months now that this has been going on. And so first, just acknowledging that this is the way we're feeling. This is what we're going through. This is the circumstances that we're faced with. We're faced with a time when basically every time you open the news, there's something depressing or disturbing. Maybe you're just constantly refreshing the count on how many infections there are in the world right now. And every time you log in, you're like, oh, yep, the number's gone up. And you refresh the screen, oh, the number's gone up. And you check it again a couple hours later and oh, the number's gone up. So that's already disturbing enough. Just keeping an eye on the constant increase, the constant spread in the virus. Or maybe you're keeping track of what the various governments are doing about the situation, or more accurately, I should say what they're not doing, because realistically, they're not doing very much, which is quite disappointing. There's only a handful of countries which have actually put forth a lot of effort in protecting their citizens, in doing what they can to stem the flow of the virus. So often when you look at the news, it's news about how little our world leaders have been doing about this crisis. So it's quite disappointing. It's quite disappointing that the people who we've invested so much trust and power in are not really doing that much to help out. And of course, it's not that they're doing nothing. There's little bits and pieces being done here and there, and it's good to know that and rejoice in that. Um, and and there's actually plenty of good news if you look around. There's a number of nonprofit groups which are directing aid towards the uh, medical problems that are happening in Italy and now in the U.S. and many parts of the world. There's a lot of groups, both religious and non-religious, who are contributing in one way or another to trying to help people out and be there for all of us. So that's actually one thing that I really do want to emphasize is not just fixating on the bad news at this time, even though there's no shortage of it. Don't just fixate on the frustrating or the disturbing or the upsetting news, even though once again there's plenty of it, but also bring your attention to the goodness that's coming out. There's actually a lot of uh, beautiful acts of human kindness, beautiful acts of compassion and consideration that are coming out all over the world, of people really making a sincere effort to help each other out in these difficult times, in this situation of global disaster. So make an effort to not just fixate on the unpleasant and frustrating information, but also to consciously bring your attention to the uplifting and joyful aspects of this. So again, I find it really beautiful, all the acts of kindness and consideration and compassion that this is bringing out, this is bringing forward. But when we are faced with frustrating or difficult news, which once again is going to be basically every time you look at the news, then there's a few things that we can do within our Buddhist practice. So one thing that's really important is, first of all, to acknowledge the sensation, acknowledge the experience that you're having, acknowledge the emotional reaction, acknowledge whatever's coming up in your heart. So if what you're feeling is frustration, then acknowledge that you're feeling frustrated. If what you're feeling is disturbance or agitation, well, acknowledge that that's what you're feeling. If what you're feeling is sadness, well, acknowledge the sadness. So the first step is turning towards our experience rather than away from it. Acknowledging our experience, not trying to cover it up or avoid it, but just facing, this is what we're going through. It's like this. It feels like this. This is what it feels like in this moment. So first, taking a moment to be fully present with your emotional experience, not trying to push it down or ignore it, not even necessarily trying to change it right away, but first starting with clear awareness. This is what it feels like right now. Then the next thing to do is to look at what's the attitude that we're taking. Do we want the feeling to go away? Do we want the news to be different than it is? If so, well, recognize that wanting is simply contributing to our disturbance, simply contributing to our agitation and our upset. So first, it's accepting that whatever is present is in fact present, and that the wish for it to be different is simply contributing to the problem. It's just making us more disturbed, more confused, more frustrated, more agitated. And the next thing that we can do is to actively produce a wholesome wish. So bringing up metta is really indispensable in times like this. Of course, it's useful at any time, but it's especially useful when we're faced with frustrating or upsetting news. So produce the genuine wish for everyone to be happy, healthy, and safe. So when you do look at the news and you see that the number of confirmed cases is getting close to 400,000, well, instead of just sinking into despair and misery, instead we can wish, oh, may all of those hundreds of thousands of people be happy, healthy, and safe. May they swiftly recover from their illness. May they maintain a peaceful mind as they face their physical problems. May their family and friends be supportive of them. May their community help them out. May they get the medical care that they need. So form that genuine wish for those afflicted to be free of affliction, for those caught with illness or loss to be free of that illness, for those faced with financial difficulties, as many people are already starting to lose their jobs or fall into difficult financial times, wishing for them as well to get through this with serenity and without hardship, without trouble. And also asking yourself, what can I do? So this is something I've said many times over the last few days, and it's something which is really not to be set aside. When we're filled with a sense of hopelessness or helplessness, ask ourselves, what can I do? And sincerely look for something that you can do in order to help out. So sometimes it's a simple thing, like ordering groceries for your neighbor, or maybe donating to one of the medical nonprofits that are trying to alleviate the problem. Or maybe it's calling up your friends and family and offering them encouraging words and support. Or if you're not a calling kind of person, you can use text messages or Skype or whatever it is works for you. But making that effort to keep contact with those you care about and give them encouragement, give them emotional support. So ask them, what can I do to make your life a little bit easier, a little bit better, a little bit more comfortable? And also reflecting when we see all the frustrating news in the world. Perhaps we hear about some government official who says something horrible or does something disappointing. Well, instead of getting angry at that person, instead recognize that their action is coming from greed, hatred, and delusion. So the problem is not the person, the problem is the defilements. The problem is the tainted mind, the taints on the mind. So it's not the person that we should be upset at, but rather it's the defilements that are the problem. So recognizing not, oh, so-and-so is a bad person, but rather so-and-so is overcome by an affliction. They're afflicted by an internal illness, an illness of the heart, an illness of the mind, which is greed, hatred, and delusion, desire, aversion, and delusion. So just as we wish for the people afflicted by the coronavirus to be healthy, to recover from their illness, we also wish that those who are afflicted by greed to be free of their affliction. We wish that those afflicted by aversion, hostility, and resentment to be free of their affliction as well. And we wish for those afflicted by delusion to be free of their affliction. And also we look at our own mind and we see, what am I doing to fuel my own greed, hatred, and delusion? Am I constantly nurturing my greed for sensual pleasure by perhaps raiding the fridge a bit more often than I really need to? Or am I cultivating greed in other ways, pursuing pleasure in other ways to distract ourselves from what we're feeling, to distract ourselves from what's going on in the world. What am I doing that's just fueling my greed? This mistaken notion that sensual pleasure is going to bring me happiness. What am I doing to fuel my aversion? Am I building up hatred and resentment towards the people mishandling this disaster? Am I building up hatred and resentment towards the illness itself? Am I building up a sense of irritation towards my situation? Well, if so, recognize that all we're doing there is just building up our own suffering. When we feed the defilements, all we do is burn our own mind. We're just tormenting ourselves. So that's not necessary. It's something that we can let go of. It's something that we can work on releasing and bringing the mind back to wholesomeness, bringing the mind back to brightness. And also delusion. Asking ourselves, what are my own delusions here? How am I feeding the tendency towards ignorance and confusion? Am I ignoring what I'm feeling? Am I pretending that nothing's wrong? Am I pretending that everything is okay? What am I doing with my own mind? And this was pretty clear for many of us, just in that for many of us a few weeks ago, we had the attitude that this was not a big deal, that there was not really a problem. As long as it was happening in some other country, then we didn't really care too much, did we? It didn't really bother us. But as it started to affect the countries that we care about, and as it came to our own doorstep, then suddenly we had to acknowledge that there was a problem after all. But the problem had been there from the beginning. We were just quietly pretending it wasn't a problem because it wasn't close to us. So that's also a function of delusion, of willful ignorance, of willfully pretending there's nothing wrong. But also we nourish delusion throughout the day by indulging in daydreaming, or getting caught up in fictional stories. We indulge in the everyday delusions of getting caught up in our internal storyline, the stories that we tell ourselves in our own mind. So also making a practice then of trying to let go of that internal fantasizing, daydreaming, and distraction, and always coming back to our direct experience. So feeling our body right here and now, just as it is, without minimizing that experience, without turning away from it, without trying to cover it up with something more interesting or something that we think is more interesting. But just coming face to face with this moment without turning away. And another thing that we do need to keep in mind is that we are, in fact, in samsara. And samsara is marked by decay, sickness, and death. This is its nature. It's inescapable. So what we're facing these days, so a global pandemic, which is affecting hundreds of thousands of people, which is likely to affect millions of people before any end is reached. A global pandemic, which is bringing suffering to countless people. So not just those who are directly ill, but also all those who are affected by the broader effects, the broader circumstances created by this. Well, this is an aspect of samsara. It's something that we can't avoid. So the Buddha said that there's 5 things that we should remember every single day. The first one is, I am subject to decay, to decrepitude, to the loss of my strength. And the second one, I am subject to illness. I am subject to getting sick. illness is an inescapable part of life. The third one, I am subject to dying. So death is also an inescapable part of life. It's something that we can't avoid, something that we can't get around. And the fourth one is everything that we love is changing and will be lost to us. And the fifth one is that we are experiencing the consequences of our own karma, and we are also constantly creating the karma that will lead to our future experiences. But for each one of these five, the Buddha also says, in some places in the suttas, he says, not only should we reflect that we are subject to these five things, we should also reflect that all beings are subject to these five. So there's one sutta where the Buddha says to reflect, it is not just me that is subject to decay, all beings are subject to decay. It is not just me that is subject to illness, all beings are subject to illness. It is not just me that is subject to dying, all beings are subject to dying. So in this way, we recognize that everyone is in the same boat. Everyone is in the same circumstance of being faced with aging, decay, sickness, and death. This is something which we all are equally affected by. So circumstances that we're all in together. So from that, then there naturally arises the mind. Just as I wish to be free of suffering, may everyone be free of suffering. Just as I wish to be healthy, may everyone be healthy. Just as I wish to be safe, may everyone be safe. This arises naturally when we cultivate the awareness that everyone is in the same circumstance that we're in. But also, reflecting in this way helps to keep us, once again, from falling into despair. Because this is not unusual. This global disaster that we're facing, this global pandemic, this global crisis, it's not unusual. Because this is still samsara, after all. And the nature of samsara is that bad things happen. Sometimes really bad things on really large scales. And one of the bad things that can happen is sickness. So this is not the first major pandemic the world has faced. So some of you are probably aware of the Spanish flu epidemic, which happened in 1918 and 1919. Which spread throughout the entire world and killed millions of people. And that's another case where the government response was very poor. And as a result, a lot of people got sick unnecessarily, and countless people suffered and died unnecessarily. Apparently, we haven't learned our lessons, by the way, because we're actually doing even worse now than we were in 1918. So despite all our advances in technology and science and knowledge, we're doing just as badly now as we were back then. And also reflecting farther back in time. Actually, if you look over the past several hundred years, pretty much every century there was some kind of major pandemic. There was some kind of widespread sickness, which caused a lot of suffering and loss and death. So you don't have to look all the way back to the 1300s, to the what was called the Black Death, the Black Plague, the Great Plague. It went by different names. But that was one case where Europe alone lost over 60% of its population. But you actually don't have to look that far back. In the intervening centuries, there's been countless times when there were pandemics of various intensities, various strengths. And this has been going on since the beginning of time. It's just the nature of things. It's the nature of samsara. It's the nature of human life. Human existence is marked by decay, sickness, and death. So the only way to become free of sickness is in the Deva worlds. The Deva worlds are not subject to sickness. They're not subject to illness. But they're still subject to death. the time eventually comes to an end, and they can wind up back here in the lower realms with the rest of us. So there's no escape in samsara from sickness. There's no escape from physical illness. There's no escape from physical affliction. But there is an escape from mental affliction. And that's through following the Noble Eightfold Path. It's through cultivating generosity, through cultivating kindness, through cultivating mental stability, and through cultivating wisdom. In this way, we can overcome our own affliction. And also, we can see what we can do to be of benefit to others. This is very important, to constantly ask ourselves, what can I do to be of benefit to others? So those are the words that I have to say this evening on this topic of dealing with frustration related to the news. So at this time, if there's any questions, please go ahead and write your questions in the live chat, and I'll answer whatever you have to say.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Bhante, for sharing some words of Dharma, and thanks for all of you to still being online despite the frustrating news of the lack of video. And Reed says, making lemonade when life hands you lemons right here, folks. So Jen is a little apocalyptic. She says, the lack of video is my karma for missing the last 2 parts of retreat yesterday. Actually, I think you have really good karma, because the last 2 parts of the retreat yesterday, you can find them with the video apart in the past video section. It's saved on YouTube, so you can still check them out and you can still practice whenever you like. Hello, Yudi. She says, Mara is testing us. Yes, it's true. And Kevin asks, Bhante, is one still born in the Deva worlds, or are those realms of spontaneous birth?
Yeah, so technically speaking, in the Deva worlds, one spontaneously appears. So one doesn't go through the process of incubation followed by physical birth, because that's an unpleasant process. So devas don't go through the process of physical incubation and birth. They simply appear based upon their karma, based upon what conditions they've cultivated. But that's a relatively minor point. It's not something which is terribly relevant to our daily practice, particularly since, hopefully, none of us are aiming at Deva rebirth, but rather at full enlightenment.
Thank you. And Reed says, this has been helpful, Bhante. One thing that helps me is to reframe difficult circumstances or news, excuse me, as an opportunity for practice. Like, yes, this is the reaction I'm having to this news, but it's a chance to address these particular reactions.
Yeah, that's a good point. So everything that we're facing is an opportunity for practice. It's an opportunity for developing our mind. So difficult situations are a wonderful opportunity to make progress in our practice. And actually, if you can keep your mind steady, peaceful, and wholesome under very difficult conditions, then your practice will grow very quickly. So yeah, so I'm happy to hear you're cultivating that kind of attitude, because it will do you much good, much benefit.
And Melvin asks, can forgiveness become a form of enabling?
That's a great question. So it depends on how we practice forgiveness. Forgiving someone does not mean that you encourage them to continue misbehaving, and it doesn't mean that you allow them to continue misbehaving. So, for example, you can say, I forgive you, but don't do this ever again. You can say, I recognize that you made a mistake based upon confusion, based upon bloody-mindedness, based upon delusion, based upon defilements. I recognize you made a mistake. See your mistake and try not to do it again. So an example of this is that in the confession formula that we use in monastic life, which comes from the Pali Canon, the person, so there's the person confessing and the person receiving the confession. So someone confesses, oh, I did such and such an offense, I did such and such an error. And the questioner says, well, do you see your error? And the confessor says, yes, I see. And the receiver says, do you vow to practice restraint in the future? And the one receiving it, the one confessing says, yes, I will practice restraint. So that's the important element, is it's not like, oh, I forgive you for screwing up and it's fine if you do it again. But rather it's, I forgive you because I understand that your mind was overcome by defilements and delusion. And you better get a hold of yourself because this is a big problem. Oh, this is something you really need to work on. And you might also ask, it's like, I forgive you, and what can I do to help you not make this mistake again? How can I help you avoid overwhelming circumstances? How can I help you develop the strength of mind, the wholesome habits and patterns, so that you won't fall into this sort of behavior again? And if the person that you're forgiving is not willing to change, then forgive them, but get away. Forgive them, but leave them behind. You don't need to keep consorting with unwholesome people. In fact, it's not recommended. If you can't help them and they're just dragging you down, then there's no point in consorting with them. So sometimes you just have to be honest and just say, like, yes, I forgive you, and we're done for the time being. Maybe in a few years things will change, but for now, we're done. Okay?
Thank you, Bhante. And Alison is asking, thank you. And a similar question, how do you not let the frustration overwhelm you and turn into anger? What to do with anger once you've acknowledged you're feeling it?
Well, the first thing is to acknowledge the frustration before it gets out of control. So the sooner you catch it, the better. Like Bhante Suddhaso the other day, he mentioned that it's like a fire. So a fire starts small. So if you catch it while it's small, then you can extinguish it very easily. But if you just wait while the fire spreads and gets bigger and stronger, then it gets harder and harder to put out the fire. And the fire will do a lot of damage before you can do anything about it. So similarly, watch the mind very closely at all times. When you notice the frustration first arising, turn your attention towards it, acknowledge it, see it for what it is, and stop fueling it, stop feeding it. It will have its own lifespan, and during that lifespan, it will change, and it will come to an end. So when it turns into anger is usually when we feed it. When we're building up and nurturing the frustration, then it can explode into anger. But if we catch immediately what we're doing and we watch instead of feeding, then the frustration is not likely to turn into anger. If it does turn into anger, well, then you apply the same methods. So acknowledging it, seeing it, feeling it, not fueling it, not building it up. And also recognize that it's unwholesome. Recognize that it's painful. Recognize that it's dragging you down, that it's hurting you. Recognize that it also leads to you hurting others. So acknowledging the unwholesomeness of the negative mind states helps to keep us from indulging in them. And it helps us turn away from them so that they fade away. Okay?
Thank you, Bhante. And Kevin is kindly reminding us to practice dana. So if you want to support the monastery, you can go to www.buddhistinsights.com/donate. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And Gabriela says, Venerable Sir, what if the harmful person is a parent or relative?
Yeah, that's a difficult situation. So in that situation, again, you really need to be loving and compassionate as much as possible. Try to do acts of kindness for that person as much as you can. When you speak to them, focus on their good qualities, praise their good qualities, nurture their good qualities. But even with parents and relatives, sometimes if things just really aren't wholesome for either one of you, then sometimes you actually do still have to reduce your contact with them somewhat. So instead of talking to them once a week, maybe once a month, these are just random time intervals coming to the top of my head. Actual time intervals depend upon your particular cultural conditioning. So in those situations, it can be difficult because relatives are people who we do have a deep connection with. But in those situations, then, if you really can't turn the connection into a wholesome, nurturing one, and you should still try. The first step is to make it a nurturing relationship, a wholesome relationship. Really try. Because often the problem is not exclusively on the other side. Often the problem is a mixture of what we're doing and what they're doing. So start by cleaning up what you're doing. And if things still are causing a lot of harm, then you actually do have to reduce the contact a bit and see if that helps.
And Julia comments, ships don't sink because of the water around them. Ships sink because of the water that gets in them. Don't let what's happening around you get inside you and weigh you down.
Oh.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Yeah.
And Yudi recommends to not forget to subscribe. I assume she intends to the channel, to Buddhist Insight channel. That will help us actually if you all subscribe and get other people to subscribe. Once we reach 1,000 viewers, we will be able to live stream in an easier way than what we currently are doing. So there will be at least one less frustrating news, which is we will avoid technical issues like today. So YouTube will allow us to use better technology once there's more people watching and subscribing to the channel. So actually, this is even a better excuse that you're helping the cause of Dhamma by watching a lot of Dharma videos. There's actually a great retreat that we uploaded a few weeks ago from Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi. So it was all the talks on dispelling delusion, which are great. And then there was lots of talks from Bhante Suddhaso, and we had also uploaded the talks from Bhante Suddhaso. And speaking of Bhante Suddhaso, we're planning on doing a little sort of how do you say
like panel discussion.
Panel discussion, yes.
Yeah. So that would involve 4 monastics in a live panel discussion. So we're still putting together the details on that, but keep an eye out on our Facebook page. And once things are put together, then we'll put out a notice.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. And Jen is reminding us all to press the like button on these videos, everyone. Everybody's a lot more technological than I am. It's great. It says, been wonderful, and it's a blessing to live in an age where the Dhamma is not just so well taught, but made so very accessible, says Reed. Sadhu, 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 we'll agree. And Count says, Bhantinaya, thank you. The situation really helps grounding our Dhamma practice. Well, it helps us too. So we're all in this together. So it's really beautiful. Your presence supports ours, and we're happy to hear that our presence is supporting you in however shape or form it is. So it's, it's a really beautiful thing to connect here every day and practice together and to see your names. So keep on doing this, and may all beings be happy and secure. Forgot to mention that we're
for those of you who are new, we meet every morning at 8 a.m. and every evening at 7:30 p.m. And in the morning at 8 a.m. we do sutta study. So tomorrow there will be the second part of we're studying the Arita Sutta. So Bhante is explaining the Anapanasati. So there will be the second part explained tomorrow, and there will be both theory and also practice. So he will be guiding us in meditation, and then tomorrow evening there will be at 7:30 p.m. meditation, and then there's afterwards Dharma discussion. And as Kevin says, normally there's video, so I'm going to try and figure out together with Bhante how to fix this before tomorrow morning, so we'll have less frustrating news to practice with. And this weekend we'll have our first weekend online retreat. So now that we've done a day long, I think we kind of got the hang of, we'll see anyway, of doing the weekend. And then eventually in April, I think we'll have a week long. So keep tuned, and I hope you have a great rest of the evening if you're here in New York, or rest of the day wherever you are. Bye. Have a great. See you soon. Have a great